Meet Mike Grabham, a serial entrepreneur and six-time founder. As host of the popular Whose Story Is It podcast, Mike has used podcasting to build his personal brand and grow his business as a CEO coach. In this episode, Mike reveals his unique strategies for creating authentic connections, playing to his strengths, and consistently delivering value. Key ingredients for standing out in a crowded market. Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Hello, incurable creators, and welcome to this episode of the Podcasting Secrets Show. Today, I'm joined by Mike Grabham. Mike is the host of Whose Story Is It? It's a podcast that has a unique format that we're going to talk about today. He's also a CEO coach, a consultant, an entrepreneur, and he has experience for the last 25 years as a six-time founder. He's going to add a lot of value today. For example, he's going to talk about how he helped grow a travel magazine's revenue by 7 times and sold it to a larger industry leader. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike.
Yeah, no worries. I'm Nathan. I'm super happy to be here, and I'm excited, man. I love this. This is the best thing since the invention of the wheel, man. I love this stuff.
Can you start off by sharing with us a little bit about your story and your journey to become a podcaster?
Yeah, I absolutely love meeting people, and I even love more meeting people I don't know. I think that's really exciting for me. It's something I get energetic about. I really enjoy it. I just did an episode yesterday, and I, 45 minutes after I did this, I just felt so energized because it just does that for me. So I just enjoy the process of, getting to know someone that I don't know, asking kind of interesting questions that maybe they didn't get asked before. I just really enjoy to get to know, Nathan at a different level than you may read about, or maybe see a video about. So that's what gets me going.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your show?
Yeah, the show is interesting. So I do it because I love to meet people, and it's a platform that allows me to kind of talk to anyone that's willing to chat. It is, it's unique because what we do in the show is we don't know who it is. I don't allow a person to say their name or what their company is or kind of really any clearly identifying information. So you're listening, but you don't necessarily have the name of the person. So if you have any knowledge of that person, you wouldn't have these preconceived notions. And so that's where it came from, was just being able to kind of dig down at a deeper level. And about 30 minutes into my podcast, I actually reveal who the guest is. And then we still talk a little longer, but the audience doesn't know who this person is, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a fun format. How'd you come up with that idea?
When I started to do my podcast, I was like, what can I do that's a little interesting for me and the audience? What could I do to make this just so it's not just an interview thing where, I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years. And the Who story, it was just something that came to me. I'm like, well, what if we just didn't tell who it was? Like, we didn't know who it was. Even if it was a famous person, you wouldn't know. It would be really interesting if you learned all their backstory, right? And you didn't necessarily know all their, what they're famous for. That would be an interesting thing to listen to if I didn't know that, right? So that's where it kind of came from.
I love the suspense and the mystery that it puts in there and gets people to listen through the episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a storied career as a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
Building your businesses and coaching other CEOs as they build their businesses. Can you tell us a little bit more about this travel magazine that you did and the success that you had
there? That was my first one. And I will say it's the only company I've ever started where it went as planned. And you know what the bad thing about that is, Nathan, is it puts rose-colored glasses on you because you think how easy it was. Because it actually was fairly straightforward. We bought a struggling magazine from a friend of my partner. We bought it. We worked our butts off for 3 years. We introduced a new product and we sold it. We literally mapped that out within the first 6 months of owning the business. We're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to introduce this new product. We're going to take market share from the industry leader. They're going to have to buy us. They're going to have to buy us. And that's exactly what we did. It was just and you look back, it's like, that was just luck. Like how, it just doesn't happen like that. And it doesn't. I mean, the other 5 and 6 times I've tried, I mean, they were never easy, not even remotely close to easy as that one was. Like that was like a layup, right? Yeah, it was fun. I mean, we had a great time, and my partner and I, we worked our butts off, but we were young and we didn't have anything else but to do but work.
Well, I know you say it's luck, but luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And if you wouldn't have bought that magazine and you wouldn't have put that 3 years of effort into it, you wouldn't have had that return that you did. And probably a lot of other people who would have pursued that opportunity would not have seen those results. So it's probably a little bit more than just luck.
Yeah. Well, you would like to hope so, but I think it's like you said, it definitely put I wish I would have done that the last company I started instead of the first one.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the software company you created?
Yeah, that was really fun. It was I think that was about 2001, and I met these people up in Vancouver. Basically, they're really just 4 guys in a garage, honestly. And they were building this app thing that could quickly download data. So it was like, I remember in 2001, there wasn't really, the phones weren't out like they are today. There was no Apple iPhone. The mobile devices were just starting to become kind of known. And so we built an app for the real estate vertical that allowed a real estate agent to be out in the field and to download the maps and all the cool and all important stuff right out there in the field. We were the first ones really to do that. In 2002, late 2002 is when we finally got it into the market. And yeah, it was really, I mean, and we were probably about 12 months too early, maybe 18 months too early, because the devices were just so crappy. The Thera was an early device, which was just a poor device. The BlackBerry was there, but it wasn't really set up for the visual aspect of what we were doing with the maps and things. So, yep. There was an HP mobile device, which was really clunky. And then, they just at the end, there started to be things come out which were more visual and your handheld devices. So I think, if we would have started 12 to 18 months later, I think we would have been much more successful. We ended up selling it. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great return for anyone, but it survived and moved on and, continued to grow. So it was fun. We got to about 8 different markets in the US and Canada. And, we ended up selling it to a real estate related company.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your podcast? Why did you start the podcast? And maybe tell me about your favorite episode that you've ever hosted on that show.
The reason I started the podcast, because I live in Walla Walla, Washington, which is relatively small, right? 25, 30,000 people. I lived in Seattle for many years, lived in LA, lived in Scottsdale, Phoenix, Arizona. So I lived in large cities, and coming to Walla Walla, you don't have an opportunity to meet a lot of people, right? It's a small town, right? So part of it was I was just socially wanted to meet more interesting people. And that was really the basis of it. And the fact that I missed the interview stuff that I used to do for so many years down in Seattle, in front of a live audience. I used to do, a lot of events, and I missed that interaction. So that was it. And the best episode, weirdly enough, it was probably the first episode. The first one.
Yeah. Tell me about it. What made that one so interesting?
Well, one, it was a guy I've known for years, Nick, great guy. He started OfferUp, which is now it's a fairly large marketplace for buying and selling stuff, right? And so I'd interviewed him probably 3 or 4 times over the years. And I picked him to do first because, one, he'd done podcasts before, so he could give me some pointers in case I was screwing things up, right? And so we did the first one, and technically we messed something up towards the middle, and then we just had to do it over, so we did it again. But he told such good stories. There was a story in there he told about. I asked him what was the worst moment of his life, and he answered it, and it was so moving. I was just it's like, wow, I cannot believe you answered that like that. I mean, it's like that is pretty raw stuff. And he goes, it's good for me to talk about it. Right. And so, after knowing somebody for so many years and actually interviewing, but hearing some things that I just didn't know about him was really interesting for me. Like I thought, that made me want to do it. Like made me want to do more podcasts. Cause I'm like, wow, if I could meet people at that level, that's very cool. Like for me personally, selfishly, it's like, this is very cool.
That's a really good point. I look back at my first show. I published every day for a year. And one of the greatest benefits that I got out of that was what I learned. It felt like I'd received a college education from some of the smartest people in the niche. So yes, a lot of value to the host.
Yeah. There's a lot more than you think. Like people don't realize how much you learn by just asking questions for people that are smart at different aspects of the world than you are, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Okay, so tell us about one of the most important things you've learned through your podcasting journey.
I would say to continue to kind of be good, be better at it, because I'm still learning, obviously, but I think to be a really good host, you need to ask really good questions. And to ask really good questions, I believe, I may be in a small camp here, but I believe that questions that even you may slightly feel uncomfortable asking are many times very, very good questions and probably lead to other good stories.
Interesting.
Like when you start to feel a little like, I'm not sure I should ask that. That is the one that's for me now that I will force myself to ask that, because I've learned that many of those responses they're just so good. You just can't, you just can't tell stories like that. Right. You want great stories. I mean, as you know, that's what we want. We want great stories. And sometimes when you ask those questions that make you feel slightly uncomfortable, the guest may feel uncomfortable, may even feel very uncomfortable. But when they answer that question with a story, it's sometimes unforgettable.
I'm trying to think through because I don't think I did a good job in prepping for this interview, because I don't have any questions that make me feel uncomfortable asking you. I'm trying to think what uncomfortable, like I could ask you for a loan or something. That'd make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it totally would.
So give us an example of what's a question I could really ask you right now that might make me feel uncomfortable. Teach me how to do this.
I would say, what is a time in your life that you felt like you didn't want to continue with what you were doing, right? Where is it? Is there a moment or two in your life where you feel like this is just not going in the right direction? And I'm not saying you're going to kill yourself, although your mind might go there. I'm just saying, what was that moment or two in your life, and maybe you've had several of them, that just made you say, wow, I am headed in the wrong direction.
Wow. I can think of the answer to that in my life. And that is a great story for me to tell. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you that question then, since you're the interviewee, not me here. So Mike, can you tell me about a time in your life where your life was headed in the wrong direction and you pivoted your life?
I have to give a bit of the backstory to get to the story. The backstory was I was in Scottsdale. I was a stockbroker. I was actually very, very bad at it. I was not a good stockbroker. And back in that day, you're really just a telemarketer. Remember, this is back in that day. That was when people answered the phones. So so I was just I was horrible at my job. It was my first job out of college. I was horrible at it. And so I found myself in a storage, you would call it storage, where you store your tools in the backyard. Your lawnmower.
Like a shed.
Yeah, like shed. I couldn't remember. Yeah, like a storage shed. I found myself in a storage shed in the middle of the night. And I know how I got there, but it kind of doesn't matter. I know it doesn't kind of matter, but I felt so poorly about where my life was headed. I took out my belt and I tried to strangle myself. Now I want to say, I want to say this because it's literally impossible to do it, because I was just pulling two ends of my belt around my neck. It's literally impossible, because the minute you get too far, you just let go with your hands and you come back to life. It's not. I couldn't have done it even if I don't know how I would have done it. But anyway, I did it for about 20 seconds, and I realized this is not the right way to go. You're taking a situation and making it worse, right? That point in that shed, right, changed my whole life, because I realized at that point that I had so much more to do, and I couldn't stop. Like, I guess I couldn't stop to do less. It was just like, you've got too much to offer. And so basically changed the trajectory of, because I could have gone the other way and went into the deep desperation, deep depression and all that crap. I didn't, knock wood. I went the other way. So that was a moment.
And how'd you get out of that situation? I mean, obviously you made the choice there of, this isn't the way to go. This is going to make it worse. That's a very mature, perspective to give yourself at that time when you're going through such grief and pain. But how else did you get yourself out of that?
Well, I think the thing that kind of got me out of the dark well that I was in was the belief that I had an ability to help others, and I knew I had it. I knew I had it, but I just never acted upon it. Right? I think that was the piece that I took a step back and say, you do have a lot to offer if you just clean yourself up, like get some direction, get some mentors, put some people around you that can help. And that was the thing that would just kind of pointed me in the right, and put me down a different path of, hey, you have an ability to help people. Like, you got to do that. Like, you can't not do that.
Yeah. I love that you got out of it by realizing you could help others. Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is sponsored by Podup, the ultimate podcasting platform. As podcasters, we're always looking for ways to simplify our workflows, grow our reach, and make more money. What if I told you that there's a tool that combines more than 35 essential podcasting features into one platform? That's exactly what Podup offers, and it's transforming how we create, grow, monetize, publish, syndicate, and do so many other things with our podcasting content. From recording and editing to website building and audience engagement, Podup covers virtually the entire podcasting process. What sets Podup apart is its focus on growth and monetization. The platform includes AI-powered features that help you save time on tasks like creating short video clips and transcribing episodes. It also offers tools for guest management, content syndication, and email list building, all accessible from one centralized dashboard. For those of you looking to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, Podup provides integrated monetization tools to help you market products, courses, and services directly to your audience. What's even better is that with Podup, you don't have to waste time and money switching between multiple softwares to produce your podcast. With Podup, you get all 35 modules within one fully integrated platform and for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in simplifying your podcast workflow while expanding your reach and making some money while you're at it, check out podup.com. That's PODUP.com and get a free trial of the software. Now, back to the show. I had a business partner. You were living in Scottsdale at the time when this happened, right?
Correct.
About 6 or 7 years ago, I had a business partner who was living in Scottsdale. He was a former Senate candidate in Arizona. And he called me one Sunday morning. I still vividly remember I was getting ready for church. I was in the bathroom, and he called me and he said, "Nathan, I'm going to church. I'm going to baptize my daughter, and then I'm going to kill myself." and I just said, "You're not leaving the church." I said, I called some friends down there and I had them go stay with them at the church. And I go and jumped on the first plane and got down there and met him at the church and stayed with him for 5 days. And a long story of what happened there. But after I came home, he killed himself.
Really?
And he didn't do what you said there. He didn't focus on, he had so much going for him. He was a Harvard MBA. He was so brilliant. He had some really bad challenges he was facing, but I love that you were able to focus on, I've got a lot of good that I can do to help a lot of people. And he's definitely someone that had a lot of good he could do to help a lot of people. And I wish he would have gotten to the same place that you got.
Like what was the difference between him and I? Why did I do that and why didn't I do the other, right?
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. He could not see a way out. He did not believe that he could solve his problem. Even though there were so many people surrounding him that loved him and were there to help him, there were so many great solutions. He just could not see the solution. He couldn't. So that's a moment that changed your life.
Yeah.
Okay. A moment or a decision where you decided to focus not on yourself, but you decided to focus on how you could help other people. Can you think of or share with us another moment or a decision that changed your life?
Yeah, the other kind of big trajectory change, I call it that, and that when I tell a story is, what really changed that direction, what made it go left instead of right. And the other thing happened about 4 years later. I was a young, goofy, I'm super social, right? So I was out a lot. I was just drinking too much and not like hurting things, but just wasting time. I call it wasting time, right? And I hit a tree one night and I was driving drunk and I hit a tree, not a big tree. It's actually a small tree, but I hit a tree. And so I got a DUI, and it was really, and it wasn't just DUI, which is really, this is super interesting. So, previous 7 years, I had hit a car, not just hit a car, and there was an insurance claim. And this was when I was living in Colorado. I was still just getting ready to move to Arizona. I was still in Colorado, and so I hit a car, and the insurance company, I didn't pay the insurance company everything they wanted from me. So in the state of Colorado, they can actually suspend your driver's license. Now, I didn't know this. So I'm in Arizona. I had been driving on an suspended license for 3 years, and I never knew it. So when I got stopped that evening, it was not were you only a DUI, you're driving on a suspended license, which just puts you in a whole nother thing, a whole nother bucket, right? So through that, and then another DUI, right? Within a very short period of time, I was sent to prison for 9 months.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I got a
that
9.
Sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. So I got a 9-month prison sentence. But here's the moment it changed everything for me. On the way I'm going from Phoenix to the place where you stay for 9 months, which is just not, it's not a jail, it's a prison, right? It's different. So I'm on a bus going to there. And on that bus, I must have had a 2-hour ride. It must have been about a 2-hour ride, maybe even 3-hour ride. But somehow on that 3-hour bus ride, I committed myself that I was going to do the most I could to learn as much as I could while I was there, because it was 9 months, that I would always add value to people's lives. I would figure out a way that I could always be adding value, some way, shape, or form. The first episode made me, I think, realize that I had something that I should have used. The next episode, which was the final episode, said, here's what you're going to do. So I read 41 books in the time I was there. I basically gave myself a little MBA, right? Because I love business. I loved it, right? But I didn't really have the tools at that point in time. So I just that's all I did. It's all I cared about. I kept a log, and I've got a whole video of this buried on my website where I talk about all the books I read and the food I ate and the exercising and everything. I was just so disciplined. I was just crazy disciplined about doing these things every day. And I've never looked back since then, right? That was the time. I mean, that was it. And it's been that.
Found your groove.
I found my groove, man. I was in the groove. I was in the, like that. I knew when I walked out of that place 9 months later that I had the right tools, right? I knew I wasn't smart yet, but I was like, I knew I had the right, I knew our direction. I knew I wanted to head north. Like, like I wasn't like, do I head east, west, north? I didn't know. I knew I wanted to head north. So I had my kind of North Star at that point in time. And it's, for the most part, it's stayed pretty true to that ever since.
Okay. So yours seems to be a story of times where you've not been in the groove and
you could say that.
And times where you've been in the groove, right?
Yeah.
And you've been down and depressed and things haven't gone your way when you've not been in the groove, but you've been able to achieve great success when you've been in the groove. Am I describing that well?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's having the mission, right? Having the purpose, right? Because I didn't have the purpose. I didn't have a purpose. When I left college and got my first job in Arizona, I didn't really have a purpose. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just something, you get a job, you go to work. I didn't really know what the purpose was. But when I left prison after 9 months, my purpose was, how can I add value to people's lives? I know if I do that, I will be paid well. I will be respected. All these things would happen if I did that one thing, right?
And you notice both of these stories that you've told us on this interview today, where you've been in bleak situations, both of them you got out of by focusing on other people and not focusing on yourself. Yeah. You were focusing on how you could help and add value and do good for other people. Is that how you get into the groove? Like, what is the secret when you're not in the groove?
Yeah.
How do you get into the groove?
Oh, that's the way to ask that. Yeah. I would say, I think there's two levels of being in that flow or groove, or depending on the adjective you want to use for that, or the term you want to use for that. But if it is a short thing, meaning it's like I'm going, like it's an important meeting, I need to be really focused or whatever, if it's something like that, like I call this a smaller thing, I always take myself back to a basketball game I played in college that was just amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I can't even describe it because it was so much fun. Like,
tell me about it. What was so fun about that game?
It was a triple overtime game. We were down several times. We came back. We just kept clawing way back. And funny enough, we ended up losing the game, but I go back to that because one, I was absolutely in the flow of playing basketball. I was absolutely in the flow. I mean, I had an amazing game. We hit lots of buzzer beaters. I was on ESPN. I mean, it was a thing, right? So that moment of time is like, still gives me chills because I know how focused I was for those 2.5 hours or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So to this day, if I have an important event, I will think back and put myself into that kind of mode and just bring that energy to myself where you feel like you're somewhat invincible, right? And it puts me in the right frame of mind I need to be in for kind of important stuff. Now, if I'm looking to, and that's I call it the small thing. When I'm looking to the big thing, I think, which is more the question is, how do I get into the right heading in the North Star? And for me, it totally is, where do I add value? Like, where do I add value? And find that. Because, like, where do I add value in this moment in time? Maybe it's sharing the story of the bad stuff that happened to me. Maybe it's sharing some of the good things that happened to me. But whoever may be listening can gather some value from that, right? So to me, that is the value thing at this moment. But I think when I focus on what you want, what Nathan wants, and what you want is, how can I add value to my listeners at this very moment? That's what you're saying. How can I add value? How can Mike add value to my listeners? And so thinking as if I put myself in your shoes, those are the things I'm like, okay, how can I add value? And so that helps me and helps me stay in the flow when I, like you say, I think about what the other person, what do they need to get out of this?
So Mike, what would you tell yourself a year ago when you didn't have a podcast that you know today?
You can't start too early, right? A year ago, I was thinking about it. I thought it was a good idea. I just didn't put any priority on it and didn't put any effort behind it. It took me, 6 more months or whatever to actually start it. So I think you just got to start, right? You just got to start. And I think the minute I talked to someone about it, it forced me to put more priority on it because it was in my head, right? And then when I actually talked to a friend of mine about it, and I'm like, I think I'm going to do a podcast. And his name's Sean. He's like, man, you should totally do that. Like, why wouldn't you do that? I was like, and then I kind of thought to myself, like, yeah, why wouldn't I do that? Like, why wouldn't I do that? And so that was kind of the thing that made me kind of push me over the edge was just, why wouldn't I? What is stopping me? It's just me. I'm the only one stopping it. So, and I'm super happy that I did because it's led to a lot of, it's led to this right here. I mean, it's led to a lot of very positive things.
Mike, if our audience has enjoyed this episode like I have, and they want to learn more about you and your services and your show, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Well, definitely you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. If anyone's, the LinkedIn users, just Mike Grabham, that's Grabham. It's actually an English name, but Grabham on paper. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's easy there. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, so I'm there a lot. Shoot me an email, just mike@michaelgrabham.com, and it's really easy there. But yeah, I love what I do. Someone asked me just last week when I was in Seattle, they said, how's life? And I honestly say it cannot get any better than this. It is right now. I love what I do. I love where I live. I love where the city I live. I love the house I live. I mean, all the things it's just wonderful. Like, I mean, it's great. And so I feel like I'm compensated fairly, all the things that, so maybe some people care about. It's just wonderful. So I'm super happy. I love what I do, but I spend a lot of time with CEOs, and that's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever been. I'm a horrible employee. No one's going to hire me. I'm really valuable to get a third opinion. Like I always call it, another set of eyes on, business related stuff. So those are my clients. Those are people that hire me, and normally it's pretty long-term things where I'll work, 12 months, 16 months, 24 months on projects to maybe get somebody to get ready to sell their company or introduce a new product or fix something that's broken or what all those things are. But yeah, I have a good sense of, I ask good questions. I'm not afraid to ask any questions in the business. I think that's important to understand what a CEO is thinking or what the co-CEOs have done that before too, which is kind of scary, but what they're thinking, where they think they were going to get to. So it's been fun learning that and, getting better at it and setting expectations and all those things. So, but man, there's not one part of my day that I regret. I mean, I love almost everything I do. There's nothing I never get up in the morning like, oh, I got to do this. It doesn't even enter my mind. It literally never enters my mind. So I just help people do what they want to do, which is most of the time grow their business, and it all works out.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for being a guest on the show today and adding so much value for me and for our audience.
Well, I'm trying. I'm still trying, man. I'm still trying to add value.
And here are my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, focus on quality conversations over perfect production when starting a podcast. Number 2, leverage your existing strengths and skills in your podcast efforts. Number 3, consistency and persistence are crucial for podcasting success and brand building. Number 4, repurpose podcast content across multiple platforms to maximize reach and impact. Number 5, use podcasting as a tool to build meaningful relationships that can benefit your business. Number 6, personal branding through podcasting can significantly increase credibility and visibility. Number 7, don't wait for perfection. Start your podcast and improve as you go. Number 8, podcasting can be a powerful networking tool, connecting you with potential clients and collaborators. Number 9, sharing stories of overcoming challenges can inspire and provide valuable lessons for your audience. And finally, number 10, podcasting allows you to create content that showcases your expertise and builds trust with your audience. If you're looking for a great all-in-one podcasting platform with 35 integrated modules, you can get a free trial at podup.com along with a free 14-day podcasting course. Thanks for joining us for this episode, and I wish you success as you turn your passion into profit through podcast monetization.